April, Faith, Maddie, and June. Scene 1. Meet the people. Here we have the Montague family, which consists of Ma and Pa Montague, and they gave birth to Romeo, our main hero in this story. He is desperately in love with Rosalind, a woman of little to no consequence, for she is only in the beginning of the play. He also has a friend, Mercutio, who likes to be a bit funny. On the other side, we have the Capulets. Again, we have Ma and Pa Capulet, who gave birth to Juliet, our heroine of the story. She is destined to marry Paris, although she is not too fond of him as he's kind of a bleed. She also has a cousin, Tybalt, who is very angry and likes to get overwhelmed by all of the emotions that are running through this play. As you can see by this beautiful heartline, Romeo and Juliet are desperately in love, but they cannot marry, for the Montagues and Capulets do not get along. The prince tries to get them to stop fighting, but unfortunately it doesn't work. At the bottom, we have Friar Lawrence, who plays an integral part in getting the two lovers together. Our action begins with a party. The Capulets were hosting a raucous party, and the Montagues, of course, were not invited, though Romeo and his friend Mercutio, among others, showed up. Romeo immediately forgot his love, Rosaline, when he saw the most beautiful girl he had ever seen, Juliet, standing, and they came and they met, and they fell deeply in love. Paris felt wounded at Juliet's betrayal of him, and Tybalt was angry because he recognized Romeo as a hideous Montague.
So after the party, Romeo's kind of wandering around. All he can think about is his beloved Juliet. He hasn't actually told her how he feels yet, which is kind of a nerve-wracking thing. But since his family can't know what's up, he decides to sneak over the wall in her backyard and try to get her attention by getting her to come out of her bedroom. Although that's kind of stalkerish behavior, he ends up overhearing Juliet on the balcony going, "Romeo, oh, Romeo," and wondering why he has to be a Montague, because he's totally awesome. I mean, if he wasn't a Montague, they could be together without a problem. She doesn't know that he's overhearing this, though. So when he gets her attention, she's kind of embarrassed for a second, but thankfully they're both totally into each other, so it's not a problem. R plus J forever. So, because they have such strong feelings for each other, after knowing each other for only like a day, they hit up the local friar, Friar Lawrence, and decide to get hitched. R plus J, literally forever. They exchange the rings and everything. But shh, it's a secret. If their families found out, who knows what would happen. While they're enjoying their love time, Romeo's friends Mercutio and his cousin Benvolio are just kind of chilling in town like two bros, when all of a sudden, Juliet's cousin Tybalt shows up on the scene. Tybalt is kind of known for being angry like all the time and starting trouble. So he's like, "Hey, Mercutio, Benvolio, what you doing?" Montagues, ugh. And so they get into an epic sword fight. Unfortunately, it gets a bit too much out of hand, and Tybalt ends up slaying Mercutio. Romeo shows up all lovey-dovey, but when he realizes that his best friend is dead, he unleashes a seething rage and slays Tybalt. Unfortunately, this means that he has now killed his new wife's cousin. That's not exactly the best way to reach out to the in-laws. Capulets won, Montagues won.
So, now that Romeo has slain Tybalt, the prince is extremely upset and he banishes Romeo. He has to leave for Mantua, bags packed. Juliet is so distraught because her brand new husband just got kicked out of their town and it's still a secret and nobody knows that they're married and more trouble is brewing. So, Paris, unknown to him, Juliet is married, so Paris still wants to marry Juliet. And she's like, "No thanks, not my scene." So, with the help of the friar, she fakes her death with the help of a handy potion. So, with Juliet lying in a tomb, everyone thinking she's dead, Romeo shows back up, and he thinks that Juliet is dead.
When he thinks that Juliet is dead, he decides to take matters into his own hands. He goes to the tomb with his own poison, professes his love, and takes it, thus dying. But Juliet, who was not really dead, eventually woke up from her poison-induced stupor to realize that her love, Romeo, was dead. She, not being able to bear the thought of living without him, grabbed his sword and stabbed herself, therefore becoming actually dead. The ending of this story is sad, as the Capulets and the Montagues mourn both of the losses of their loved ones, and the prince has nothing to say except quit it. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.
Okay, guys, but seriously, Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. This story is one of the great tragedies that has ever been written, and there's some important themes that we should talk about. First off, there are a lot of uses of light and dark imagery throughout this play to portray the light and darkness that happens throughout the story, both in the actual words that Shakespeare uses and in the scenes that he sets. Also, fate is a major theme. Romeo and Juliet seemingly are completely unable to control their own destinies. They fall into each other's lives, and quickly fate takes them on this journey that ends in their deaths. There's also a major theme of the individual versus society. In this story, Romeo and Juliet think of only their own roles and how they're affecting each other, rather than how their actions are going to affect all the people and society around them. And finally, the major tragic theme of this play is the naivete of young love. Romeo and Juliet are both less than 20. They don't fully comprehend the power of their actions, both their falling in love, their marriage, and their deaths in the end. So, as we read and discuss this play, we can look at these major themes and see both the comic side and the truly tragic side of Romeo and Juliet.